Economic experts say Nevada's going to have more than $8.8 billion to budget out for the next 2 years. But how does the state get to that number, and how do agencies use the money? The latest revenue projections come from the State Economic Forum in early December. The forum is a panel of 5 private sector experts on taxes in the economy who are appointed by the governor and legislative leaders. It's their job to consider and weigh tax revenue projections from several other groups, including state analysts, the governor's budget office, and economic research firm Moody's Analytics. They come up with a prediction on how well all of the state's different taxes will perform over the 2-year period that starts in July. The forum will fine-tune their prediction in May, which will tell state lawmakers whether they have any less or more money to work with as they wrap up the legislative session and finalize what has to be by law a balanced budget. In other words, spending cannot exceed income. The state can't base a budget on running up its credit cards and paying them off later. At nearly $9 billion, the budget for the new biennium is expected to be almost $600 million more than the last one. It sounds like a lot, but money goes fast in state government, and I'll get to that in a second. Tax revenues are expected to grow across the board, some faster than others. Revenue from the modified business tax, also known as the MBT or payroll tax, is expected to grow by just 1.5%, but sales and use tax revenue is expected to rise by almost 11% over the next 2 years. A small percentage boost for a few key taxes can mean a big boost to overall revenue. That's because just 4 taxes account for almost 3/4 of the state's overall general fund revenue. The sales and use tax, that's the one you pay every time you go to the store, is the biggest revenue stream for Nevada, bringing in about 30% of the state's income. All the casinos you see on the Las Vegas Strip, the gaming taxes they pay account for just 18% of the state budget. The modified business tax your boss pays on your wages brings in almost 16%, while the tax on insurance premiums you buy for your house and your car come in as Nevada's 4th largest revenue stream. There are a lot of other smaller taxes, including the live entertainment tax placed on concert tickets, the commerce tax paid by large businesses, and the property transfer tax due when you sell your house. All of those combined make up about 1/4 of the state's general fund revenue. The economy's been growing for almost a decade now, so most economists are assuming there will be some sort of an economic downturn in the next 2-year cycle. Opinions vary as to how severe it will be. Moody's Analytics predicted this fall that there would be a recession starting in mid-2020. But state analysts were more bullish, and they predicted that the economy will slow down but not actually reverse course. That's because they think the state is a bit more resilient now, including being less dependent on tourism than it was a decade ago. They also think the construction sector hasn't grown to an unsustainable size as it did in the years just before the Great Recession. Governor Sandoval is leaving Governor Steve Sisolak with a full budget proposal, in which much of the expected additional revenue is eaten up by everyday expenses, such as expected growth in K-12 and college enrollment, the rising cost of health coverage for public employees, and the state's growing financial obligation for Medicaid enrollees. But there's some new spending included too. The governor's budget puts more towards school safety measures and adds reading specialists for the Read by Grade 3 initiative. The proposal doesn't seek to raise taxes or fund the Education Savings Account program, and it also anticipates that the state will phase out the use of a private prison in Arizona. Governor Sisolak will have the authority to revise the budget, and the Democrat-controlled legislature will spend the 120-day legislative session adapting it to their liking. Follow the Nevada Independent for full coverage of the upcoming legislative session and how Nevada's new budget will affect you.